Good morning, YouTube. Today I'm going to be talking to you about poke sacks. First, I'll go over exactly what makes a good poke sack, and we'll also talk about who makes them, and I will actually show you how I make my poke sacks. I have two here that aren't mine, are mine, but weren't made by me. The first one is a Sutler Row variant. The only reason why I got this, I bought it because I needed tobacco, and this is the stuff that he puts his tobacco in. And I'm not going to say the name of the Sutler, but this basically is a really good example of exactly how a lot of your poke sacks are from Sutlers, or I've even seen some reenactors make their poke sacks. First thing is, it's machine sewn. Poke sacks were either made by the soldiers themselves using scrap materials from old shirts, whatever, and they were actually made by aid societies too. Generally, hand sewn. I would say really just stick with hand sewn. You can't go wrong, and it's not a hard thing to do. And if anything, if you want to get into actually hand sewing and making your own items, poke sacks are probably one of your best ways to practice and learn how to do your stitching. And once you learn more stitch work, you're able to advance. You can even add stuff to them. I've actually made poke sacks that have a little grommet hole here and that you can tie clothes. There's so many different things you can go with it, and there's no set standard for what size or really or even the design and the construction techniques of them. They're generally, as long as they're square, made out of one piece or two pieces of fabric. This one's made out of two pieces. This one my buddy made me, which is a good, correct style of poke sack. This is actually a single piece, and making sure you use period correct materials. This stuff here, the material, it's not too bad. It looks like a real rough, sort of thin, really thin Honestberg, but I've seen some poke sacks made out of like nylon materials, stuff that really just prints that aren't period correct. But yeah, I've seen some stuff that just laughable in my opinion. This is actually made out of Honestberg. It's real nice. My buddy made it for me. I think he gave this to me. I think actually he gave this to me when we first started or at least campaigning together. So it was really nice, a nice little present from him. He used Honestberg. He used hemp twine for the drawstring. You can use hemp twine. You can use cotton twine, like I'll be using on my project. So as long as it's period correct materials, and if you're unsure if something works, find someone who you can trust. Or if you're really, really unsure, go ahead, comment, or send me a message on YouTube, and I'll let you know. So, but my poke sack, what we're going to do today for it, I'm using Family Heirloom Weavers material. This is some material that was left over from a frock coat project my buddy and I did over the summer. I really like it. It's a good, almost heavy to medium weight fabric. Really, really nice stuff. I bought it from Walmart White. It's really sad that they don't have this stuff anymore because I really, really like this material. And I'm kind of jealous that my buddy's got this for his liner. Mine's good, but I kind of like this better. So, and I wanted to use that for his, but, well, my dimensions for it, and like I said, you can use any dimensions, whatsoever. The only thing I'll recommend, if you're using it, I'm doing a two-piece construction, but if you're using a single piece, you could take away 1/2 inch on one side, but, or not add 1/2 inch, but wherever you're going to be having, for at least the three sides here on mine, I added 1/2 inch more than the width that I wanted. And then I added about 1.5 inches on top, at least for how I'm going to construct it. So, and then you're going to need, this is about 2 feet. I think it's a little bit more than what I am going to need, but, it works. And I'd rather have more than enough on here. Pin cushion. You're going to need pins. For pins, I like using glass head pins. You can actually buy these Joann Fabrics. I've even actually seen them at Walmart. They're really nice. If you're ironing, you're not going to worry about melting the any of the heads of the pins. I put these into my housewife. They did have glass head pins back then, and even though they're these are machine made, Not exactly like the style of glass head pins from back then. They still work. And yeah, they're not too bad. I really like them a lot, and it's a couple bucks, and you get a big giant box of them. The thread that I have here is from Needle and Thread in Gettysburg. It's $16 for a spool. It's linen thread for hand sewing. I like it a lot. It's really great. I definitely was, it was definitely a good purchase for myself. Then of course you're gonna need your needle. Can't forget that, and a pair of scissors, and your beeswax. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off. I'll show you how I do one line of stitching, and then after that I'll just stop the camera and do a step, and I'll show you exactly each step that I do for it. So let's begin. First part, go ahead and tie your end. This is an actual extra piece of thread. It's about, well, this is about the working size of what I use for something. It really depends on what you want to do. I like it. Some people go with shorter, and I don't know. For me, if I go any longer than this, it's going to start binding up towards the end when the beeswax starts coming off. You're going to come down. This is going to be one side. This isn't the side that has the string coming out. But you're going to come down about 1/2 inch, and I like to stay in one spot and put a couple of stitches, especially here, because this will be kind of a stress point, and what that will do is it will help strengthen your stitching. It's kind of like when you use a sewing machine, you go back and forth. That's basically what we're doing here, making this stitch nice and strong. I don't want this thing falling apart. And with this thread and simple techniques that I actually read about this technique from, I think actually out of the Godey's manual, I think, or Godey's, I can't remember, I don't know how you pronounce it. But, and then after that we're going to do a running stitch all the way down to about 1/2 inch at the other end here. So, and about, I like to do about 5 stitches an inch on this. You don't have to be perfect. Like I said, these things were made by soldiers in the field. Not all soldiers were expert tailors. You did have some soldiers that actually could sew quite well. If you look in Echoes of Glory, the books there, especially on the naval uniforms or any of the Navy stuff, you know, which they had plenty of time, so they were able to really do some good work. But they did a lot of embroidery. Matter of fact, I think a couple of the seamen's uniforms actually have some extra embroidery work done to them. But you also see, though, too, in Echoes of Glory, which are really great books, you can see a lot of stuff in there. They actually have a couple of items there. There's even, I think, a shirt that was made by a soldier who was in a prison, and from the photos it looks pretty good. So they didn't have women around to do a lot of this stuff, and a lot of soldiers learn how to cook and sew, etc. for themselves. Now, you could use regular store-bought thread, but I wanted to make a really nice poke sack. I've used some store-bought thread before in the past, but the reason why I'm using my linen thread is not only this would be, you know, this is all stuff that you would see, very period correct, but B, this thread is really super strong, and it's not like I'm going to have tons of weight in this bag, but I know it'll last me for many, many years. Now, after going about a couple inches, what I like to do is do a back stitch, just like so. One little back stitch, and what that's going to do is that as you're going down the line of stitching, you're not going to start bunching up, and then before you know it, oh crap, I mean, you're trying to straighten it all out.